In this lesson, we're going to talk about articles. Now, going back to Spanish 101, you guys learned how to say the and a, an, or some. Let's take a look at these words. Okay, just as a quick review, definite articles, which mean the, are el, la, los, and las. And of course, they change depending on whether they are masculine, feminine, singular, or plural. We are not going to go over that in this lesson. Indefinite articles mean a, an, some, or a few. Un, una, unos, unas. And in general, we taught you in Spanish 101 that for the most part, those articles correspond to English. They translate pretty well. But in this lesson, we're going to delve a little bit more into the concept and learn when in Spanish, sometimes they use the article and we don't, or sometimes we use the article and they don't. Let's take a look. Definite articles, so el, la, los, and las. Sometimes we use a definite article to replace a possessive like me or mis or tu or tus. We do this with body parts and clothing. So we tend not to use the possessive me or mis or tu or tus with body parts and clothing. Lávate la cara y las manos. Wash your face and your hands. We say the face and the hands. Ponte los zapatos rojos. Put on the red shoes. Put on your red shoes. Me mordí la lengua. I bit my tongue. In Spanish, we say I bit the tongue. Hace frío. Trae el suéter. Bring the sweater instead of your sweater. Okay, it's not to say that we never ever use possessives with body parts and clothing, but generally we don't. With titles and occupations, here's the rule. When you're talking to a person, señor, señora, profesor, profesora, etc., you don't use an article. Hola, señor Shank. Hola, profesora Gutierrez. But when you're talking about the person, in Spanish, we use an article. In English, we don't. Ayer vi a la profesora Gutierrez en el mercado. Yesterday, I saw Professor Gutierrez in the market. Okay, in Spanish, we use the article because we're talking about her and we're referring to a specific person. So we use the article la. El General Martinez fue mi vecino. General Martinez was my neighbor. Okay, we're referring to that specific general, that guy. We're talking about him. So we say El General. If I were to see him on the street, hola, General, we don't need an article. Okay, so that's the difference. When talking to somebody, no article. When talking about somebody, you use an article. You use el or la. With ordinal numbers, so first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc., we do not use articles in Spanish. In English, we do. Carlos Quinto, Carlos the fifth. Enrique Tercero, Enrique the third. Now, there are some feminine nouns that have masculine articles in the singular form. When the stress is on the a that is next to the article, then you use a masculine article. So, excuse me, let me rephrase that. When you have a word that starts with a or ha and it ends in an a, and the a that is closer to the article is stressed, you use a masculine article, even though it's a feminine word. For example, el águila. The a in águila is stressed, and the article is masculine, el águila. The plural form is feminine, las águilas. El agua, the first a is stressed, las aguas. El arpa, the harp, las arpas, the harps. El hada, the fairy, las hadas, the fairies. Now, why is this? Because el is easier to say than la. There isn't a contradiction there. El águila, very easy to say. La águila, there's like a little pause in there. It's kind of awkward. So we change it to el to make it easier to say. Now, if the stress is not on the a near the article and the word ends in a or ad, something with an a on the end, then you keep the feminine article. La alcancía, piggy bank. La habilidad, ability. Now, with certain types of nouns, we tend to use the article in Spanish, and we don't in English. Okay, for example, me gusta el café. I like coffee. Mañana voy a tomar café para el desayuno. Tomorrow I'm going to have coffee for breakfast. Okay, what is this? Well, this is when you're referring to a general category of something, we use the article. Like, I like coffee. That means I like the category of coffee. I like all coffee. Okay, breakfast. I'm talking about all breakfasts. We use the article. Now, what about this example? Las manzanas son mi fruta favorita. Apples are my favorite fruit. I'm referring to all apples, the whole category. But what if I need to go to the supermarket to buy apples? Well, I'm not buying the whole category of apples. I'm just buying some apples, an unspecified amount. Voy a pasar por el supermercado a comprar manzanas. I'm going to the supermarket to buy apples, not the whole category, just some. El pescado de este restaurante me encanta. I love the fish in this restaurant. Okay, so I'm referring to something specific. The fish that's here in this restaurant. Now, this is not something that you're going to hear. This is going to be a regional thing. It's kind of a random thing, depending on the person you're talking to and where you're at. Sometimes people use el or la in front of somebody's name. Okay, and it doesn't make any sense in English because it'd be like saying the Michael, the Henry, the Isabel. Okay, but they use it. It's kind of a stylistic thing that people do, and don't be surprised if you hear it. It's not something that you really need to master, but you might hear something like this. El Miguel dijo que no iba a poder llegar hoy. It's just simply Miguel said that he wouldn't be able to make it today. Okay, but El Miguel is just, it's like a stylish thing that people say, like that Miguel that I know, the one that you and I know. Okay, but it's difficult to explain the concept because we don't have anything like it really in English. All right, indefinite articles. Let's take a look at those. Now, for the same reason as before, words that start and end with A and have a stress on the first A, or the A that is nearest to the beginning, we make masculine article. Un águila, an eagle. Unas águilas, some eagles. So it goes to feminine in the plural. Time and distance. Sometimes the word unos or unas can mean about or approximately. Okay, for example, ¿cuánto falta para que se acabe la clase? Faltan unos 5 minutos. Okay, how much longer do we have in class? We have about 5 minutes left. So about is unos 5 minutos. ¿Ya llegamos? Are we there yet? En unos 5 kilómetros, in about 5 kilometers. Okay, now this is something that you may or may not hear from time to time, but it's like using un or una can be emphatic, like, oh, a real, like he's a real pain in the butt, or oh, he's a real clown, or something like that. Es una belleza de carro. Ooh, it's a real beauty of a car. Eres un payaso, ¿sabes? You're a real clown, Using an omission after ser. Now, when we identify who someone is or what they do for a living, we tend to not use the article. Mi madre es maestra. My mother is a teacher in English, but my mother is teacher in Spanish. Mi tío fue arquitecto. My uncle was an architect. In Spanish, we would say my uncle was architect. But when you add an adjective in there, you do add the article. Mi madre es una buena maestra. She is a good teacher. So we added the word buena, and so we put the word una in there to accommodate it. Mi tío fue un arquitecto muy conocido. My uncle was a very well-known architect. Okay, so we put in conocido, which is an adjective. We add un in there. Hopefully that made sense. And again, just like everything else that you're learning, this all comes from practice, hearing the language, and being familiar with the rules and the uses really helps when you make mistakes, because then you know why, and okay, I shouldn't make that mistake because this is what I learned. This is how they say it. Buena suerte, amigos.